Listen to our story. Scene 1. The kingdom continues. David said to Solomon, "Be strong and courageous. Follow God's ways so that you'll prosper in everything you do. If you and your sons and grandsons are faithful to God with all your heart and soul, your family will always remain on the throne of Israel." When Solomon became king, he prayed, "God, I need your wisdom to discern good from evil. No one could lead these people the right way without your direction." With great joy, God filled Solomon's heart and mind with wisdom. Solomon gained great knowledge in many areas. He became an expert on birds, fish, animals, and plants. He also wrote many proverbs, poems, and songs. The Israelites were amazed by Solomon, and he became known all over the world for his remarkable wisdom. People from faraway countries traveled to Israel just to learn from him. Scene 2. Sending spies. Generations earlier, while the Israelites were traveling through the desert, God's presence moved with them in a sacred tent called the tabernacle. When David became king, he planned to build a temple as a permanent place for God to dwell. But God told David, "You are a man of war and have shed too much blood. I've chosen your son to build my temple. He will be a man of peace." So as God said, there was peace in Israel under King Solomon's reign. So Solomon declared, God has blessed us and given us order and safety. Let's build a permanent home for God in the center of our land. Right away, thousands of workers began to build a massive temple to replace the tabernacle, using the plans David had drafted. Solomon recruited the most skilled craftsmen and acquired the finest materials in the world to build the temple. He chose precious stones for the foundation. Walls were milled out of cedar, then covered with gold. After 7 years, the magnificent temple was completed. Solomon instructed the leaders of Israel to put the Ark of the Covenant in the temple. The Ark of the Covenant is the special box containing the tablets given to Moses with God's commands in them. The Ark was placed in a special room behind a thick curtain called the Holy of Holies. Only one person, the high priest of Israel, was allowed to enter this room once per year to make sacrifices on behalf of the people. As soon as the Ark of the Covenant was put into place, fire flashed from above as God's presence entered into the Holy of Holies in a thick cloud. Then Solomon prayed, God, there is no one like you in all of heaven and earth. You keep your promises, and your love endures forever. The temple became a special place of prayer, worship, and sacrifice. It was a symbol of God's continuing presence with the people, and Solomon became the most wise and prosperous king in Israel's history. Scene 3. A kingdom compromised. Over time, Solomon began to turn from God's ways. He brought women home from foreign countries to be his wives. Although having multiple wives was common in that day, God had warned the Israelites, "Do not marry foreign wives. They will turn your hearts to their false gods." But Solomon didn't listen, and his wives turned him away from God. He wasn't loyal to God like his father David had been. Solomon began to do evil things and build shrines to false gods. He treated the people of Israel like his slaves. So God was angry with Solomon. Solomon knew better. In fact, God has spoken to him directly and warned him about what would happen if he worshipped other gods. But Solomon ignored God. So God said to him, "Since you have not followed my ways, the kingdom will be torn away from your family and divided." Despite God's warnings, Solomon became even more wicked.